Madeleine Albright. Madeleine Jana Korbel Albright, born Marie Jana Korbelova, May 15, 1937, died on March 23, 2022. Was an American diplomat and political scientist who served as the 64th United States Secretary of State from 1997 to 2001. A member of the Democratic Party, Albright was the first woman to hold that post. Born in Prague, Czechoslovakia, Albright immigrated to the United States after the 1948 communist coup d'état when she was 11 years old. Her father, diplomat Joseph Korbel, settled the family in Denver, Colorado, and she became a U.S. citizen in 1957. Albright graduated from Wellesley College in 1959 and earned a Ph.D. from Columbia University in 1975, writing her thesis on the Prague Spring. She worked as an aide to Senator Edmund Muskie from 1976 to 1978, before serving as a staff member on the National Security Council under Zbigniew Brzezinski. She served in that position until 1981, when President Jimmy Carter left office. After leaving the National Security Council, Albright joined the academic faculty of Georgetown University in 1982 and advised Democratic candidates regarding foreign policy. Following the 1992 presidential election, Albright helped assemble President Bill Clinton's National Security Council. She was appointed United States Ambassador to the United Nations from 1993 to 1997, a position she held until elevation as Secretary of State. Secretary Albright served in that capacity until President Clinton left office in 2001. Albright served as chair of the Albright-Stonebridge Group, a consulting firm, and was the Michael and Virginia Mortara Endowed Distinguished Professor in the Practice of Diplomacy at Georgetown University's School of Foreign Service. S-Pause 2 equals 0.4 E-Pause. She was awarded the Presidential Medal of Freedom by President Barack Obama in May 2012. Albright served on the board of the Council on Foreign Relations. U.S. Ambassador to the United Nations. Albright was appointed Ambassador to the United Nations, a cabinet-level position, shortly after Clinton was inaugurated, presenting her credentials on February 9, 1993. During her tenure at the UN, she had a rocky relationship with the UN Secretary-General, Boutros Ghali, whom she criticized as disengaged and neglectful of genocide in Rwanda. Albright wrote, "My deepest regret for my years in public service is the failure of the United States and the international community to act sooner to halt these crimes." In Shake Hands with the Devil, Romeo Dallaire writes that in 1994, in Albright's role as the U.S. Permanent Representative to the UN, she avoided describing the killings in Rwanda as genocide until overwhelmed by the evidence for it. S-Pause 2 equals 0.4 E-Pause. This is now how she described these massacres in her memoirs. She was instructed to support a reduction or withdrawal, something which never happened, of the UN assistance mission for Rwanda but was later given more flexibility. Albright later remarked in PBS documentary Ghosts of Rwanda that it was a very, very difficult time, and the situation was unclear. In retrospect, it all looks very clear. But when you were there at the time, it was unclear about what was happening in Rwanda. Also in 1996, after Cuban military pilots shot down two small civilian aircraft flown by the Cuban-American exile group Brothers to the Rescue over international waters, she announced, "This is not cojones. This is cowardice." The line endeared her to President Clinton, who said it was probably the most effective one-liner in the whole administration's foreign policy. In 1996, Albright entered into a secret pact with Richard Clarke, Michael Sheehan, and James Rubin to overthrow UN Secretary-General Boutros Ghali, who was running unopposed for a second term in the 1996 election. After 15 U.S. peacekeepers died in a failed raid in Somalia in 1993, Boutros Ghali became a political scapegoat in the United States. They dubbed the pact Operation Orient Express to reflect their hope that other nations would join the United States. Although every other member of the United Nations Security Council voted for Boutros Ghali, the United States refused to yield to international pressure to drop its lone veto. After 4 deadlocked meetings of the Security Council, Boutros Ghali suspended his candidacy and became the only UN Secretary-General ever to be denied a second term. The United States then fought a 4-round veto duel with France, forcing it to back down and accept Kofi Annan as the next Secretary General. In his memoirs, Clark said that the entire operation had strengthened Albright's hand in the competition to be Secretary of State in the second Clinton administration. Secretary of State. When Clinton began his second term in January 1997, following his re-election, he required a new Secretary of State, as incumbent Warren Christopher was retiring. The top level of the Clinton administration was divided into two camps on selecting the new foreign policy. Outgoing Chief of Staff Leon Panetta favored Albright, but a separate faction argued, anybody but Albright, with Sam Nunn as its first choice. Albright orchestrated a campaign on her own behalf that proved successful. When Albright took office as the 64th U.S. Secretary of State on January 23, 1997, she became the first female U.S. Secretary of State and the highest-ranking woman in the history of the U.S. government at the time of her appointment. Not being a natural-born citizen of the U.S., she was not eligible as a U.S. presidential successor. During her tenure, Albright considerably influenced American foreign policy in Bosnia and Herzegovina and the Middle East. According to Albright's memoirs, she once argued with Colin Powell for the use of military force by asking, "What's the point of you saving this superb military for, Colin, if we can't use it?" As Secretary of State, she represented the U.S. at the transfer of sovereignty over Hong Kong on July 1, 1997. She, along with the British contingents, boycotted the swearing-in ceremony of the Chinese-appointed Hong Kong Legislative Council, which replaced the elected one. In October 1997, she voiced her approval for national security exemptions to the Kyoto Protocol, arguing that NATO operations should not be limited by controls on greenhouse gas emissions, and hoped that other NATO members would also support the exemptions at the Third Conference of the Parties in Kyoto, Japan. According to several accounts, Prudence Bushnell, U.S. Ambassador to Kenya, repeatedly asked Washington for additional security at the embassy in Nairobi, including in a letter directly addressed to Albright in April 1998. Bushnell was ignored. She later stated that when she spoke to Albright about the letter, Albright told her that it had not been shown to her. 76. In Against All Enemies, Richard Clark writes about an exchange with Albright several months after the U.S. embassies in Kenya and Tanzania were bombed in August 1998. "What do you think will happen if you lose another embassy?" Clark asked. SVA's second equals 0.4 pause, "The Republicans in Congress will go after you. First of all, I didn't lose these two embassies," Albright shot back. "I inherited them in the shape they were." In 1998, at the NATO summit, Albright articulated what became known as the 3 Ds of NATO, which is no diminution of NATO, no discrimination, and no duplication, because I think that we don't need any of those 3 Ds to happen. In February 1998, Albright partook in a town hall-style meeting at Street John Arena in Columbus where she, William Cohen, and Sandy Berger attempted to make the case for military action in Iraq. The crowd was disruptive, repeatedly drowning out the discussion with boos and anti-war chants. James Rubin downplayed the disruptions, claiming the crowd was supportive of a war policy. Later that year, both Bill Clinton and Albright insisted that an attack on Saddam Hussein could be stopped only if Hussein reversed his decision to halt arms inspections. Albright became one of the highest-level Western diplomats ever to meet Kim Jong-il, the then leader of Communist North Korea, during an official state visit to that country in 2000. On January 8, 2001, in one of her last acts as Secretary of State, Albright made a farewell call to Kofi Annan and said that the U.S. would continue to press Iraq to destroy all its weapons of mass destruction as a condition of lifting economic sanctions, even after the end of the Clinton administration on January 20, 2001. Albright received the U.S. Senator H. John Heinz III Award for Greatest Public Service by an elected or appointed official, an award given out annually by the Jefferson Awards Foundation, in 2001. Death and funeral. Albright died from cancer in Washington, D.C., on March 23, 2022, at the age of 84. Many political figures paid tribute to her, including U.S. Presidents Jimmy Carter, as pi u second equals 0.4 e pos Bill Clinton, George W. Bush, Barack Obama, and Joe Biden, and former British Prime Minister Tony Blair. Her funeral, held at Washington National Cathedral on April 27, was attended by President Joe Biden, former Presidents Barack Obama and Bill Clinton, and former Secretaries of State Hillary Clinton and Condoleezza Rice, as well as President of Georgia Salome Zurbichvili and President of Kosovo Aus Osmani. Thanks for watching HerStory channel. Don't forget to like the video and subscribe our channel.